Welcome to Super Life with me, Darren Oline, a podcast where we explore, discover, and share solutions that promote a healthier life and a better world. Together, we'll ignite possibilities, inspire change, and build sovereignty, creating a roadmap towards a super life for you and for all. Get ready to start living your super life. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. This is Darren Oline. This is the Super Life Podcast. That's right. I really want you to live your super life. I tell that all the time, but the biggest thing I want to transfer to you is for you to take that on. Whatever area of your life, we all have aspects of our lives where we're really dialed in. And we need to also work on transferring that skill we have in certain areas over to other ones that need an uplift. And health is always that one. You know, health is usually from the last few decades, we've offloaded our health to the healthcare system, to the guy in the white coat. Someone else has better information than us. And from one respect, yes, because we're so instinctually neutered in one respect, we need to kind of come back to self-governing our own health. And that's really what I want to inspire you through Super Life to take that on. One question that I get all the time, and certainly every person in the healthcare space, certainly vegan or vegetarian, and even whatever carnivore or keto, everyone's talking about protein. It is ridiculous how much we think protein is the savior of our health. Today, we're going to talk about protein. We're going to talk about, are you getting enough? We're going to talk about, how do you get enough? What if you already have enough? Right? We're going to actually tackle that. You actually might be already over the amount that you're getting. People seem to be confused all the time about protein because all the conflicting information, it's the biggest trending question out there in terms of consistency. I had one Instagram follower say, I struggle to eat enough protein. That's what she said. Is it true? Should I eat the amount of protein in grams as my ideal body weight? So that's usually how many kilos do you weigh? Us over here on this side of the pond, we use pounds. So to calculate that, it's just 2.2 divided by your pounds. So I'm 200 pounds, roughly. If I divide that by 2.2, I'm roughly around 90 kg. So if I were to take 1 gram per pound of body weight, that would be 90 grams. Okay, but we're going to tackle all this stuff. That may or may not be true, may or may not be what I need. There's many factors, and there's factors for different stages of life, different stages of what you're doing or not doing. All of this matters as it relates to your protein requirements and so much more. So the first thing that this person asked was, I struggle to eat enough protein. I would argue that they're being told this and think they're under eating protein. That's what my instinct would say, but who knows? So that's what we're going to dive into in this episode. Is it true? Are you eating enough protein? Where are you getting your protein? What stage of life are you in? What's your goals? All of these things seem to matter, which is why I don't know, man. I want to do a deep dive on the history of this question, and really understand why this protein thing. Many people have talked about it here and there, but I want to kind of condense that down as a fascination and do a story on it at some point or episode on it. So, am I hitting the amount of protein you need? What are the negative effects of getting too much protein? Because there are, or not getting enough protein, which there also is. So Why do so many people struggle with this? Why do so many people think they struggle with a lack of protein? And that's usually the biggest question. So we're going to dive into this stuff. Where do I get my protein from? Are protein powders okay? Well, for the most part, I'll just answer that now, since I've created some products that have protein in them. We use a wide variety of proteins, not just one, which you're going to get the theme of a variety of foods, a variety of sources, plant sources, is really good for balancing all the amino acids. It always does, and it always will. So the data certainly supports that. But relying on protein as a stance that you need more, I don't think you do. But adding protein in terms of a breakfast or whatever, a smoothie bowl, I do that because I know it's tested. Literally 5,000. I'm referring to Shakeology that I started developing in 2006. I was aware of contaminants and heavy metals, and luckily Beachbody, or now called Body, they followed it up by 5,000 studies that we do in every batch. We test everything in country and when it arrives and as it comes together in the formulation, know where our stuff's from, all of that stuff. I'm not making this episode about that, but I'm just addressing the protein powder side. I don't trust many protein powders. I don't trust many supplement companies because even if you're naive, you're not doing the proper testing. Protein powders can carry heavy metals. They can carry lead, mercury. They can carry cadmium, all of these things. So obviously in an industrial form, concentration form, that is not a good idea. However, all of those things are in nature. They are found in nature. The dangerous ones is the accumulation of industrial the industrial size, the industrial heavy metals, contaminants. That's the very dangerous stuff. And we found this in maca at 14,000 feet. We were going, why are there heavy metals that wasn't spiking for such a long time? Why is it spiking now? We found that there were 6,000 to 9,000 unregistered illegal mining operations throughout the Andes in Peru. And therefore, if you didn't test it, you didn't know. So you would never think that an industrialized heavy metal would be in maca, right? Because it's in the middle of nowhere. But of course, nowhere is somewhere when you're aerosolizing in the water, in the air, industrialization, right? So anyway, that's just a point to make around that. So I want to dive into and debunk some myths. There's some great resources if you want to nerd out. Simon Hill has some great guests. One of my favorite, Dr. Christopher Gardner. I want to get him on my podcast. He's had him on several times. Dr. Walter Longo, who I love, who we had in season 1 of Down to Earth from the Blue Zones and longevity perspective, and we'll talk about that. So Simon, I'll have a link in the show notes to Proof Podcast. And if you want 2 hours of protein myth busting and clarity, you can watch Simon's YouTube on that. So I encourage you to do that if you want to really dive in. But I'm going to summarize most of this stuff so that you don't have to spend more time wondering. And I'm not going to cite everything as I'm talking, all the research, but I have it in the show notes, okay? Just to be clear. So, of course, protein, just like carbohydrates, just like fats, are required. Just like essential fatty acids, we have things that we need to ingest in order to facilitate life. And as cells die and replenish, because we're replacing different areas of the body have faster and faster replication. So we're constantly sloughing off with autophagy, and we're constantly rebuilding all the time through DNA and RNA and signaling and everything else. So obviously then quality of things coming in, because that becomes you. So understanding protein is important. Why? It repairs obviously muscle, other tissue, and helps us grow. We want to maintain muscle mass, definitely as the driver. But in order to maintain it, I'll just make a point here. By you increasing your protein without the stimulus, meaning working out, resistance training, gravity training like push-ups, pull-ups, squats, walking even, but that's not really anabolic in terms of preservation of muscle. But I'm just saying gravity through space and time, and moving your body and resisting it, building muscle, that's the stimulus. Then your body will require more protein synthesis, thereby requiring more protein. And then when you take in more protein, it still has to break it down into the individual amino acids to then uptake it through the RNA signaling of where your body needs it the most. So obviously, if you stimulate it with the releasing glycogen out of the liver and glycogen out of the muscle and breaking the muscle micro tears and breaking it down and stimulating the need to grow or to maintain, that's a higher amount of protein synthesis that you will require. So therefore, and I'll get into the kind of how much to zero in on protein in order to facilitate that. So that's just talking about muscle pair and regrowth. It already happens anyway. So anytime your body just moving through time and space, you will always need protein, but you will need more if you're stimulating it on a consistent basis. It also helps for sure through satiety and appetite control, as does other things. It's not just the only thing. You can get appetite and satiety control by fiber, by the stomach distending, by volume, right? All kinds of signaling goes on in the body. Nutrient density helps signaling as well of satiety. So, and also this helps overall metabolic support. But there is levels. Too much, too little. I want you to try to find the middle, and I'm going to help you do that. So I'm just going to cover again, the recommended daily allowance is the RDA. So a sedentary person, someone who doesn't do anything, in order for your body metabolically just to kind of stay there, that person requires about 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. So just below 1 gram. But listen, it's not, you don't have to go crazy about this. So if you're sedentary and not working out that much, then 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. And again, just cut your body weight in half basically, and you'll get the kgs, right? So again, recommended daily allowance. Athletes, which we'll get into in a little bit, and individuals who are active will require more protein synthesis, thereby requiring more higher levels of protein. Okay, so let's just do some myth busting. I love what Dr. Christopher Gardner put together. He's a nutrition scientist at Stanford University. Big shout out to him. I love what he's done. He addresses several common myths, so I want to give him credit for that. I'll add my spin here and there, but talking about protein requirements, he gets this all the time. He has to answer it every podcast he does. Almost every time he talks, he has to answer the same thing. So, which is why I avoided this. I want to talk about other things, but I realize you, want me to say it, just like every other kind of health promoter in the world has to answer the same question. But there is a common sense to this whole thing. And again, shout out to my boy, Simon Hill, has gotten the top researchers on his podcast to delineate and decipher. This is a very complicated situation. Even what I'm going to give you, it's still lacking individuality, precise individuality. So there are measures that you can take, which are complicated. But to understand your metabolic need, to understand what kind of stimulus, protein synthesis is going on for you, how old you are, what your goals are, all of those things matter in terms of your protein intake, but it also matters in terms of your overall, what are you doing for your health? So it's not just protein, man, but everyone wants to reduce things down. So protein requirements, research shows, this is again by Dr. Christopher Gardner at Stanford University. So what Christopher Gardner got into is he also supported the protein requirement thing. Sedentary lifestyle, 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. This was from the Institute of Medicine, dietary reference intakes for calories of energy, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, all this stuff out of Washington, D.C., National Academy of Sciences. Plant protein completeness. So the myth, is plant proteins incomplete? No, they're not. From his work and others, all amino acids, even the essential amino acids, are in every plant food. The only way this doesn't work is if you eat rice and rice alone, for example, or any one food, whatever it is, you're then going to be low in a certain amino acid. So the data shows, and the research shows, that plant proteins in relation to human protein amino acid nutrition, through a diversity of whole food, you easily get all of the amino acid profile. So again, all plants have all of the essential amino acids. Where this got thrown out, or where this gets talked about, is saying that they don't, which is not true. They just are lower in certain essential amino acids, lower in them. But what happens is, as you eat, not even per meal, it's even distributed throughout the days and weeks. If you eat a wide variety of plants, you get the distribution of all of the essential amino acids in every amount that you need. So you can just eat more food. So you eat your salad, nuts and grains and seeds and whatever it is. You eat more of those things and you naturally get all of the essential amino acids. What's more effective? Animal versus plant protein. The research suggests plant-based proteins can be as effective as animal-based proteins for muscle synthesis. Again, this is in the show notes. It was a study, the skeletal muscle anabolic response to plant versus animal-based proteins, showed that there was no difference. No difference. So it also suggests that animal-based proteins sources are healthier because you're lacking the saturated fats, the link to cardiovascular disease, et cetera, et cetera. So this is very interesting. Also, protein and muscle building. Excessive protein intake beyond requirements doesn't lead to additional muscle gain. So if you are eating, if I need 100 grams per kilogram of body weight, so I need 100 grams per day, and I eat 200, That does not mean you gain more muscle because you're over what you need. So excess protein beyond your normal requirements of whatever you need, if you're active and building muscle, you do not need excessive protein. It's not true. Again, this is work by Dr. Gardner, and highlighting this research was a systematic review, meta-analysis, meta-regression of the effective protein stimulation or supplementation on resistance training induced gains in muscle mass and strength in healthy adults. Also, high protein diets and weight loss. While high protein diets can aid muscle loss, they're not inherently superior to balanced diets. Hear me? High protein diets can aid muscle loss for a short period of time, but there's also some negative effects over long term that we have to be aware of. They're not inherently superior to balanced diets. Protein supplements for athletes. Most athletes can meet all protein needs through diet alone. There was another study at the position of Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, Dietitians of Canada and American College of Sports Medicine. They did a study where it supported the idea that protein needs can be met by balanced eating alone. So, very interesting. So, what are some of the takeaways? Plant-based proteins versus animal. Dr. Gardner advocates for benefits of plant-based diets, arguing that plant proteins are as effective in meeting protein needs while also providing additional benefits like fiber and phytonutrients, which are extremely important for so many other things. Fiber, fiber, fiber. Focus on fiber, your whole life will change, by the way. Secondly, focus on overall dietary patterns instead of focusing solely on protein. Emphasize the importance of overall dietary patterns, including the types of proteins consumed, types of foods consumed, eliminate ultra-processed food, increase whole food, plant-based diets. Not only meet protein requirements, as it shows in the research, it also supports long-term health, reducing the risk of chronic diseases. So why would you go off of that when there's overwhelming and continuous data to show that higher plant-based protein sources and lower animal-based overall is better for your overall health, and you get all your protein requirements. Protein and weight loss. Dr. Gardner's research also examined the role of dietary protein in weight loss, specifically comparing plant-based and omnivore diets. His work indicated that weight loss can be achieved with various protein sources, whole foods, a variety of foods, including plant proteins, obviously. And we're not talking protein powders here. We're just saying a variety of foods that have plant proteins in them, and that a high protein intake is not necessarily the key driver for successful weight management. Nutrition is complicated. There's a lot going on, including protein requirements, ultimately. But we're going to make it really simple. And it should be personalized because there's so many factors like genetics, metabolic health, state of life you're in, physical activity, how old you are, all of this stuff. Children, adults, aging population, protein and longevity. So Dr. Walter Longo's research shows that once you're going over 15 to 20% of your overall calories from protein, your chances of cancer go up by, I think what he said is 400%. Listen, he did this, I believe, not in human studies, but through all of his longevity, showing that from a variety of different perspectives, that your increase of cancer goes up a lot when you increase over a period of time your protein requirements over what you need. And that is, from his perspective, over 15 to 20%. And it turns out that around 15 to 20% is about what the RDA is. So it's about anywhere from, if you're an active person, anywhere from 1 to maybe, if you're bodybuilding and kicking ass, maybe up to 2 grams per pound of body weight. But that is over the 15 to 20% typically. But around 15 to 20%, that puts me at about 100 grams per pound of body weight on my overall calories. So it equals out. So this has an impact also on your overall mortality. Increases your overall mortality risk once you go over 15 to 20%. This is from a longevity perspective. And that also increases IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor, which is not good for cancer, mTOR, which increases aging. So there's all of these things. So again, it depends on the perspective. And, if you're vegan, you're vegetarian, if you're the athlete, if you're active, you're older adult, all of these things can have different, people are generally, here's the statement. What they found was people who are not eating horribly, eating ultra-processed food and all, but a normal person eating pretty well. Guess what they found? They're all getting enough protein. They're already getting. So that statement of one of my listeners asking, I don't know where to get my protein, is probably not coming from the doctor and probably from some TikTok person saying that she needs to eat more protein. The truth is, the studies show that most people are already getting over the amount of the RDA. So you're already getting over 1.2, 1.4 per pounds of body weight, and you're not even trying. Just by eating less ultra-processed food and more whole food, plant-based. And of course, I'm not here to necessarily push eating whole food, but if you're also eating chicken and whatever else people eat and fish, and you're definitely over the amount that you need just by eating normally. It's a common recommendation to consume protein in this grams equal to your ideal body weight in pounds. So particularly in fitness categories. So yes, you want to inch your way up from 1.4 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. Now listen, I'm not at 2 grams per kilogram of body weight because my body doesn't need that much. But more because you're stimulating more. Keep that in mind. If you're sedentary, you don't need as much protein. So you don't need to buy the protein bars. You don't need to go out and you don't need to try. That's the thing. I don't try to eat protein. Most people that I know, especially whole food, plant-based people, you don't have to try to eat more protein. Unless you're a bodybuilder and you're jacked and everything else. But it's not devoid of I'm not, some days I had a 3-day watermelon fast, but I'm not consistently eating that for my life. I'm eating a balanced. So again, it is really common sense and it shows up in the studies. And I've got a lot of great research in the bibliography. So how much do I need? If you are active and actively working out, I would look at 1 gram per kilogram of body weight all the way up to 1.6. Then that doesn't push you. If you're stimulating, working out, pretty much doing something every day, or at least weight training 3 times a week, then you know you can eat a little higher protein. But as soon as you eat too much, you're going the wrong way in terms of a longevity perspective. So why would you want to strain your body? This is from the research. Why would you want to strain your overall mortality or put yourself in a position where you have an open door for more potential for cancer? So you don't have to obsess over protein. That's the point. You don't have to obsess over it. But eat with common sense. Fruits, nuts, seeds, leafy greens, variety of colors, fiber. Eat fiber. Eat fiber. I'm not going to get into carnivore and all of that stuff. That is just out of my mind nuts. Right? If you want to do it for a period of time, it's called elimination diet. But to do that every day, the data shows that you are sprinting for a much bigger problem. The problem is when people do elimination diet and they get better, because there's an underlying thing of some food sensitivity, food allergy, some metabolic condition, then they do an elimination. Yeah, they're going to repair, but what path are you on for your overall longevity? You need to reassess and then change things up and start adding food back in that you're not reacting to. Work with a functional medical doctor. Start understanding that. So kids, you don't have to parents with kids, you don't have to over-obsess over protein. Don't worry about it. We are the mammals with the least amount of protein in our milk, okay? But don't let your kids eat ultra-processed food as their staple, which is hurting and killing our kids. Midlife, while you're working out, if you're an athlete or if you still want to be an athlete, then yeah, now you're looking at 1 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. From an aging longevity perspective, if you're going too much protein, that is from the science so far as what we know, it seems as though it's going against you. Okay? So lower your protein. Most of you actually need to lower the amount of protein because you're not using it. The longevity protein risk is too great. Okay? So that's the most important thing. So I hope that makes sense for all of you. I hope that this starts to give you an understanding. Where are you at? Are you working out? You'll need more stimulus. Don't go crazy. Cut your weight in pounds in half and you'll get a general idea that that's 1 gram per kilogram of body weight, plus or minus. And so you can inch that up to 1.2, 1.4 if you're an active person. As you age, if you're over 65, then the data does show that you can increase your protein so that you try to maintain more. But that's that's a shift of the metabolic condition at that point. If you're sedentary, that's a big problem anyway. You need to work out. But if you're sedentary and eating too much protein, that is a double whammy, triple, quadruple, whatever whammy. Because exercise is your medicine. And that's your stimulus for the protein. But if you're taking a protein, I would argue that it's dangerous to take in too much protein over a long period of time. My perspective. And it does show up. Talk to Dr. Longo. He's the expert in it, and he does show it. Anyway, I hope that makes sense for all of you. I love you, and you don't have to obsess over protein. From my perspective, I eat a bunch of plants. I eat fruit. I eat nuts. I eat seeds. I eat legumes. I eat beans. I eat tempeh. I eat tofu. You don't have to worry about the phytoestrogens because there's a different estrogen than the petroleum-based endocrine disrupting estrogen mimicking things. It's a completely different thing. It doesn't lower testosterone, by the way. Actually helps the other. And there's so much data around healthy individuals having more isoflavonoids and things like that. So tempeh tofu every day, all day. Well, not really. You know what I'm saying. Okay, that's it for protein. Hopefully that makes sense. A bunch of more data in the show notes, links in the show notes. So have at it. But I hope this helps. Like and subscribe, share it, take it in, change your life, and live your best super life ever. I love you.